yet another deep dive for Grow Kids. My name is Elle, this is Linda, and in this deep dive, we are going to be walking you through a series from Volume 5 of Grow Kids. This one is called Up in the Air, and what we're going to do in this deep dive is to first give you like a really big picture look at what this series is all about, and then we're going to get specific and look at a few of the details that we really don't want you to miss. So Linda, why don't you tell us what the plan is for this deep dive? What are we doing?
Yeah, we have some really fun things to talk about in this deep dive. What we're going to do is just kind of give you all of the fun and also very important details about this series. So, if you're a Grow user, this is perfect because then you can get a head start on planning for your final series in this volume if you're following our suggested schedule. And even if you're not a Grow user, I think there are so many wonderful ideas that you can take back to your ministry and use it however you'd like. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give you a big picture overview of Up in the Air. And then we're going to go into talking about the theme and some fun decorating ideas. And then we're going to talk about the structure on how the teaching is laid out for you. And lastly, we're going to wrap it up with just some fun tips to take Up in the Air to the next level.
All right, so let's look at this big picture overview of this series. Like we've said, the series is called Up in the Air, and this series is all about the prophet Elisha, not Elijah. He was the guy right before Elisha. So, what we're doing in this series is really kind of talking about that handoff from Elijah to Elisha, and just kind of like these big shoes that Elisha needed to fill. And we're talking a lot about like big dreams, big vision, accomplishing big things for God. So, that is kind of the theme of this series and why we're leaning on this idea of like up in the air, like dreaming big. So, Linda, walk us through what the series is going to look like in some more detail.
Okay, so here's how that's going to work. We're going to start off in week 1 by looking at 2 Kings chapter 2, which is the story of Elijah going up to heaven in a chariot of fire and how Elisha is going to take over now. And when he boldly asked for that double portion of the blessings God had given to Elijah, we're talking about how that was brave, and also he was dreaming big about how God can use him to do big things. So this week's big idea is I can dream big with God.
Love it. And then in week 2, we're going to be looking at 2 Kings chapter 4. And in this story, you've probably heard this story before. It's the story where Elisha meets a widow, and there is a jar of oil, and God does some pretty cool things through that story. And so, what we're going to be focusing on in this story is what is our big idea, which is I can have faith in God.
That brings us to week 3, and we continue in 2 Kings chapter 4, and we talk about the story with Elisha and a family in Shunem and how they experience both really joyful and very tragically sad things. But in both of those things, they find out that God will really deliver on those things that Elisha said would happen. So this week's big idea is I can count on God's promises.
And then in week 4, we are going to wrap up 2 Kings chapter 4 with a couple of stories about how God took care of Elisha and the other people who Elijah was with during a famine. So even when, things look really bleak, really scary, we really want to help kids think about the fact that God can still be trusted to provide for them. So the big idea for this week is I can ask God for what I need.
And finally, in week 5, we're looking at the story of Naaman being healed of leprosy in 2 Kings chapter 5. And we find that in this story, Elisha doesn't really do anything extravagant or grandiose. Like he doesn't even go and see Naaman in person. But it shows that God can just do amazing, extraordinary things even through Elijah's super and simple instructions. And so the big idea here is I can be used by God.
Love it. And then, as always, we always give you a memory verse for the month that kind of encapsulates some of the big picture ideas or themes of the series. So, for this month, the memory verse is really reminding kids to like look, quote, up in the air, to look up to God with their struggles, with their dreams. And so, the memory verse this month is Colossians 3:2, which is set your mind on things above and not on earthly things. All right, so let's talk about the theme for this series. Once again, it is called Up in the Air, and as you can probably tell from the series graphics, the theme is about all things that are up in the sky. We're talking clouds, balloons, kites, all the things that are up there in the sky. And the series really starts with Elijah being taken up into the sky. So that is a nice little lead in. And then we really want to help kids just think about, like, again, like their big dreams, the big things that God can do through them. So that's the whole idea here. There's some really cool sky bulletin board paper that we recommend. You can find all of this in your programming guide for the series, as well as a bunch of other really fun stuff. So, Linda, walk us through all of the other amazing ideas that we have for the series.
Yeah, I feel like that Sky bulletin board paper is a kids ministry staple. So you probably have a lot of that already, but if not, you know where to go find them. But if you don't, we do have links provided for you in our programming guide. So there are so many ways you can go with this because it's pretty broad, but that also means that you can kind of just pick which ones, make you excited. So we're going to lay out some options for you and see which one strikes your fancy. You can put out that Sky bulletin board paper, or you can just use plain blue paper or fabric as your backdrop and just kind of put three-dimensional objects in front of it. So one way you can go are these three-dimensional paper clouds, which would line up perfectly with our series graphics. You can also make clouds out of like cotton and other fun like felt type things too, and that would give it some texture. You can also add in some airplanes and all kinds of airplanes, like biplanes or like jumbo jets, whatever you like. You can also throw in paper airplanes if you want to go the more simpler route, and you can actually have your kids make this with you, right? So you don't have to do this all by yourself. Don't forget the hot air balloons, because those are always visually just really fun to look at. Or you can do regular balloons, especially if you have anybody in your ministry who is really good at making those balloon arches and things. That would be really fun. And another way you can take this theme is maybe go to the airport theme route. And so that would be really fun because then you can put up your daily schedule on like a departures board. You can create like a security checkpoint that kids can walk through, but maybe like don't make them take off their shoes or anything like that. Um, and the cherry on top would be you can ask your leaders to dress up like pilots and flight attendants, which will just add to the whole theme. And you can incorporate all of the fun like gimmicks that come with that as you teach the lessons each week. So look for these ideas and more ideas in terms of crafts and giveaways and prizes on our Pinterest board and in our programming guide.
Okay, next up, we want to give you a look at the structure of the series. Now, if you have been using Grow for any period of time, then you've probably seen that there are some similarities to every single week, but there's also a lot of differences between every series. That is because we were trying to find that balance for you of like a structure that's similar month to month, so that you don't have to start from scratch every single time. You kind of know what to expect, but also enough kind of like new interesting things on a week to week basis that your kids kind of stay interested and stay engaged. So the thing that you can always expect to find in our elementary teaching is for our teaching to be broken up into three sections. That is the what section, which is what are we talking about? That's kind of like the fun intro to the subject. So what, which is why does this matter? And that's the part where we really dive into scripture. And then finally is now what? And that is where we do application for kids. So now that we've learned this Bible story, kind of heard what God has to say, how do we make this part of our actual lives? So you'll see that every single week. And then within every series, there's a couple of things that we try to keep unique for that specific series. So, Linda, what is interesting and unique specifically about Up in the Air?
What's unique about Up in the Air is that every single module is unique. And I know if you've been using Grow for a little bit, then you'll know that we like to keep some of the things as recurring segments so you don't have to do a lot of additional prep. And so a lot of the modules, like you'll kind of build on it from week to week or just kind of do the same thing, but kind of change up the point. This series is super creative. And so they're all kind of different, but promise it's not anything daunting. It's low prep, but I think it's really, really exciting. And so let's talk about that. We're going to talk about how we're doing different things as you do the Bible storytelling and also how you do the big idea reveals.
Amazing. So let's start with the Bible story. You'll also see in every week of Grow that we always have at least two Bible passages. The first one is like typically a story. And so that is really where we spend most of our time and attention because we know that kids learn best from stories rather than kind of like abstract concepts or ideas. So we always have a Bible story. And then we also have a secondary passage that really kind of helps enhance the thing that we're focusing on in that week's Bible story. And we know that anytime anytime you teach a story to a kid or really to anybody from scripture, there are like 1,000 different things that you could potentially focus on in the series, which is why it's cool that we have a 3 year scope and sequence, because every 3 years, we're going to come back and talk about Elisha all over again. And in 3 years, we'll probably highlight different attributes of these same stories. So, Linda, walk us through what's like interesting and fun about the way we tell the stories this time through Elisha.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to really enjoy these because I feel also as a children's pastor, I kind of get stuck in creative ways to tell the story. And then we kind of go to our default comfortable zones. But this month, the suggested storytelling methods are super fun and on theme. So each week we have these suggestions. For example, in week one, we're suggesting you get up on a ladder or a step stool, but with all the safety precautions, of course, and you have all the kids lie on their backs and look up at you, and then you can like kind of decorate it so it looks like you're floating in the clouds and stuff. I thought that'd be really fun because it reminded me of the movie Up, when like they're like looking up at the sky, and that's really fun. And I think kids would enjoy that as a different method of hearing this story. We have one where you're pretending you're inside an airplane cabin, so you can set up your chairs like two columns of like, what is it, like three chairs each, right, in the rows. And you can do the whole airport dress up thing that we talked about earlier. You can like dress it up with give them like safety instructions and like point out all the exits and stuff. That'd be really fun. In week three, we suggest like a Mary Poppins style of entrance where someone like kind of like wheels you in on something with wheels that you might have in your space, and come in with an umbrella or a kite, if you saw Mary Poppins Returns, and that would be really fun. Week four, we suggest that you put the chairs in a circle so the kids are around you, and you put like helium filled balloons on the back of their chairs. So you're kind of in like a makeshift hot air balloon. And then lastly, in week five, we're playing with the concept of the night sky. So we'll turn off all the lights and use like a projection night light with like stars and stuff. And so that would be really fun as you tell the Bible story each week.
I love it. That's so wonderful. And you also mentioned the big idea reveals are going to be a little bit unique for this series as well. So every week, we have a big idea, and the big idea for every week of the curriculum is really just kind of a short, simple sentence that encapsulates the truth that we're trying to focus on with kids that we want them to remember. Because these Bible stories can be kind of complex. There's a lot of things to remember, and so what the big idea does is it helps kind of really focus kids in on one simple truth that they can take away from the story. So, how are we revealing these though, Linda? Because we always try to do these in kind of a fun, on theme sort of way. So, what does that look like this time?
Yeah, and you'll notice when you do your own deep dive into the series that each week we do focus on a different aspect of the sky. So one week we focus on balloons, one week we focus on planes. And so you'll see that theme kind of carried throughout each week. And so you'll see that in the Bible storytelling, the activities, and also in these big idea reveals. So in week one, we're talking about clouds. So we're doing a classic crayon resist art. So you'll take a piece of poster board, cut it out in the shape of a cloud, and you write the big idea in like a wax crayon, and then you kind of paint over it with blue paint or marker or what have you. So the words kind of look like they're being, spread across the sky. That'd be really cool. And then week two, we're doing paper airplanes. So you're going to write each word of the big idea on its own paper airplane. You're going to ask a volunteer, or you can do it yourself, like fly in one plane at a time, and the kids will catch it and read the words out loud. So that'll be chaotic and super fun. In week three, we're talking about God's promises. So we have a lot of rainbow themed activities. So the big idea also, it's going to be one word on like different colored paper, and then you'll like flip it over in rainbow colored order. And then so we'll reveal the big idea that way. And then in week four, we're doing balloons. And so like hot air balloons, all kinds of balloons. So we're suggesting you do like you put the words inside the balloons and you pop it, and then the word comes out. But if you have people in your ministry who are deathly afraid of these things, or they're just really uncomfortable with the sound, or if they have latex allergies, all sorts of things, you can do the same thing with colorful plates shaped like balloons, and you just like flip the plates over and it will have the same reveal kind of effect. And lastly, in week five, we're going to do the night sky, like I talked about with our Bible story. And so we're going to write each word of the big idea on a star, and then shape it in the shape of the Big Dipper, and then have it in order and have kids find out the big idea that way. So lots of fun ideas this month.
I love it so much. I can't handle it. Friends, we say this every time, but seriously, we really want to see your pictures and videos because this is going to be so cute. So please share, because we just want to see.
And on that note, if you feel like these are one too many ideas, like pick one you like the best and you can repeat that from week to week. So you're like, I can't do all of this. I don't have the resources. And you're fine. Just if you want to do the crayon resist art each week, you can. Like you're not stuck with these ideas. So have fun.
That's so true. Yes, we love it when you customize, make it your own, make your own decisions, friends. You know what to do. You got it. But okay, that's awesome. So now that we've seen kind of the big picture of this whole series, let's get a little bit more specific with a few tips to help you make this series extra awesome. All right, friends, we have 3 quick tips for you for this series. The first one is don't forget to check the discipleship section of your downloads because this series is actually designed to go along with the Dream Big workshop, which is our discipleship activity for the summer quarter. You can find that in your discipleship section of your downloads. And what this workshop is really meant to do is to help kids think about sharing their stories of faith. And we do that every summer, and we do that in different ways each time. So this time we're really trying to help kids think about like what are the big things that they could do with their lives that God could do through them and kind of engage their imaginations in that way. So be sure to check that out. You can find that in all of your downloads. It is there for you. It matches very nicely, not only like visually with the series, but also thematically. So yeah, check that out. That's your first tip.
Tip number 2 is to build a kite with the coloring pages. I know. If you've been watching these deep dives for a while, I feel like I'm plugging coloring pages every month, and maybe I am. But the ones from this month are extra special. Like, check these out. You can have kids color them in, and they're all kind of each a piece of a giant kite. So at the end of the month, you can collect all the coloring pages or just, collect it from the kids every week and then have them like tape it together or tape it onto a piece of poster board or what have you. And you can make it into the shape of a kite that they can take home. And also, you can, take it to the next level by adding some string and making the tail of the kite as well. I think this will be a really fun way for kids to not just color in the stories and kind of learn about it, but it's like they have this nice little memento that they can take home and put on their walls.
I love that so much. So adorable. And listen, Linda, keep plugging the coloring pages because they're so cute.
They are really cute, you guys. I love them. This is like one of my favorite parts of this job is I get to help give the vision for these coloring pages. So, hey, and if you guys have any suggestions for future coloring pages, let us know. We're all ears.
We want to hear them. Linda, that is really true because I've heard you say multiple times. I wanted to work for Grow because all of the coloring pages I could find are terrible. So you just wanted to be the boss and you just wanted to tell people what to make for you.
It's true. It's true. I'm like, it'd be easier for me to create coloring pages than to find them.
Well, it's been working out great. We love the coloring pages. Thank you so much. And then the third and final tip for you friends is not really related to the series, but the tip is don't forget to check out volume 6 of Grow Kids. It just released on May 16th. That is the day that we release our new volume of curriculum every year. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please be sure to check it out. This new volume is so awesome. We are super, super excited about all of the things we're going to be teaching, all of the stories we're going to get to unpack. And something that's cool about Volume 6 specifically, if you've been following our scope and sequence, is Volume 6 is actually the point where we start over in our scope and sequence when we're talking like the Old Testament, because we go through the Old Testament chronologically every 3 years. So in Volume 6, we start over again in Genesis. So I know a lot of you have asked that in the past, like, hey, when does the scope and sequence kind of like restart? 6 is the time that it happens. So make sure you check that out. And we're just really excited about all of the stuff in this new volume, all of the amazing authors and contributors. Every year, the team who is involved in creating this, as well as the feedback that we get from you guys, make it better and better every single time. And for those of you who are like preschool pastors or you're working with preschoolers in some way, you're going to really like Volume 6 because we did a ton of work to make all of our preschool content like even more age appropriate. A lot of that based on your feedback. So be sure to check that out. We're excited about it. We hope you are too. And friends, as always, Join us again next month for our next deep dive. And in the meantime, we would love to see your pictures, your videos, hear your stories, all of the things that you are doing to make these series your own. We want to hear it because you're awesome and creative, and we think you're so cool. All right, friends, that's all we got for you today. Linda, you got anything else?
No, we really love you guys. And we just thank you so much for going on this journey with us. And we really hope you love this series and volume 6 as well. We're so excited.
Yay! Amazing. Friends, we'll see you next time. Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.